What are signs that you see in your clients that they should increase their food intake? I'm trying to figure it out for myself if I should, as I want to lose fat. I usually sit between 1,800 to 2,000 calories a day. We'll be diving into this question and very many more in today's episode. All right, kicking it off with a calorie question. So she asked a couple, this is from Amanda. She wants to lose fat, but she's figuring out when they need to increase their food intake. So typically 1,800 to 2,000 calories a day. Now, a couple different ways you can go about this. The first and like the most obvious statement I'll kick it off with is you need to be in a deficit typically to efficiently lose body fat. That being said, we've talked a ton about this gain-taining phase. It's not the most efficient way to lose fat. So it really depends on where you've been starting, Amanda. Have you been in a deficit? It sounds like you've been sitting around maintenance calories for a little bit. So you probably have the ability to reduce, but you're asking specifically for increasing food intake. So I'll pass the baton, Joelle, and then we'll go back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm curious about a few more like context pieces of this question. Is anyone surprised? Because I think this is where something like reverse dieting gets really, really misunderstood. And there was a huge wave of like the reverse diet, reverse dieting got pitched as this way to increase your calories and lose body fat. And I think it confused the hell out of people. And there absolutely is a time and place for increasing calories, especially following a deficit. So I'm curious, like, is Amanda asking, hey, I want to lose fat. How do I know if I should increase my calories when those two items are going to be counterproductive, counterintuitive? So if the goal is to lose body fat, you're likely going to need to bring calories below 1,800 to 2,000, or start with being at 1,800 consistently, see where that brings you. Because if you can lose body fat on that lower end of the spectrum, then there's not really a need to jump down yet to 17, 16, 1,500, et cetera. So that's where I'm kind of confused as to like where this question is potentially coming from. Or is it you've been in a deficit, you are wanting to lose more body fat, and now you're wondering like, should I pop back up to maintenance? Do I increase my calories from here? I don't know if you guys feel the same way. My interpretation is her saying, I want to lose body fat, which to me means she's not currently exploring a deficit. And so if your question here is, how do I know if I need to increase calories? You don't. If your goal is a deficit, you're going to want to decrease from there. Because you're in that range right now, I would start with 1,800 calories, sit there consistently for a few weeks, 2 to 4 weeks minimum. And then reassess if calories need to come down below that. I would only think about increasing your calories if you have been in a deficit for either a very low deficit, even for a short time, and or a deficit for an extended period of time, and you are seeing biofeedback suffer. You're seeing sleep suffer. You're seeing digestion suffer. You're seeing training adaptations suffer. You're seeing recovery suffer, fatigue, poor immune health, getting sick more often, et cetera. Signs of poor recovery. That's when we may talk about increasing calories. But if the goal is to lose body fat, we're not increasing calories.
Right. So I think that potentially was the angle she was coming from. She's trying to lose fat, so she's been in a deficit. She's losing weight at around 1,800, 2,000 calories. So if that is the case, you're going to focus on the second half of what Joelle just talked about, biofeedback. Performance. How are you sleeping? What are those indicators telling you? Like, you'll know, like if you've been in a deficit for a while and it's time to jump up, your body's going to tell you. So it's just about listening to that. Now, also, depending on the time frame, let's say you're closer to 3 months in a deficit and you just find that you're constantly getting hungry. Those things are starting to suffer. But you can make it like, you're like, you know what, I'm just seeing the beginning phases of this. They're feeling the beginning phases of this coming on. Like, I can probably go a couple more weeks. You don't have to jump out immediately at like the first sign that these things are getting worse. But once you typically hit that 3-month threshold, or those things start becoming more prominent, then that's usually going to be time to say, all right, let's take a little maintenance break, slowly move calories up, and do what you got to do from there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Amanda's second question is about chronic pain. I'll just read that for you. Second question she asked is tips and advice for training as someone who deals with chronic pain. I get debilitating migraines, and there are some days I'm lucky to get 3,000 steps. I love lifting and I love feeling strong. So when these flare-ups occur, I feel so discouraged with progress in movement, strength, and nutrition. Feels. A, do you happen to be on migraine medication? Because that could potentially be something to explore. I don't know if this is debilitating migraine flare-ups with medication, but I know that there are several different medications that people can explore, prescription medications that people can explore for migraines. And so I'd be curious about if this is with or without medication and if we're able to further pinpoint those triggers. But the reality is it's really challenging when that happens, and it is really frustrating when that happens, especially when you feel like, okay, I've gotten a few weeks where I'm in a good groove and movement is going well and I'm increasing my strength and my nutrition's on point, and then you have those days where you're like, I can't even get out of bed, let alone get a workout in. I think that something that we always come back to in a conversation like this is gradual returns, number one, and number two, something is always better than nothing. And so if we can get in a walk, but we can't lift, great. Then at least we could get in that walk. If we can, if we now don't have a migraine, how can we take a gradual approach to reintroducing exercise? And the reality is, just for a point of kind of reassurance, our health and our fitness and our strength and our nutrition and our body composition and just overall health as a whole is going to be reflected by what we do most of the time, not all of the time. And so I know there's another question in here later that we're going to get to where someone asked, like, what do you do when just life is lifing, basically? And I like to give that reminder of your results and your progress are a result of what you're most of the time doing consistently.
Right. It's not perfection, it's consistency. Right. And I think even this question has two very distinct components. If you're down for the count with a debilitating migraine, like there's nothing you're going to do about that. Ride it out, do what you need to do just to feel better. If it's the chronic pain and it's something you're dealing with on a daily basis, like find the threshold that you can work up to that doesn't set you back. Like build up to that point, move forward to that point, but don't go beyond it. Like don't push, I need to see progress. Like if you're creating more pain for you the following day or later that day, you're not seeing progress by going a little harder. And I understand how hard it is to pull the reins and like, listen, this is the stop point. This is my hard stop. But you have to skate that line because at the end of the day, like your health is more important than seeing that extra few pounds, whatever you're doing in the gym, pushing that weight a little further, going a little longer on that run. You have to find that delicate balance for what your body can handle right now. So it's definitely a tough situation, and we've all gone through different variations of that. Yeah. So it's not an easy answer to give you, but I think that's the best we can give it to you right there is find the line, don't go past it. All right. Lindsay says, it's a little bit of a story it looks like, and then I'm assuming there's some questions in here. I'm friends with a girl at my gym. She teaches fitness classes and has a big social media following, which was also a bikini competitor at one point. Anyway, she recently posted about doing a parasite cleanse and syncing it up with the full moon. I know these are unlikely to offer any real benefits, and honestly, for some people, they can have dangerous side effects. None of these supplements are approved by the FDA, and from what I can tell, some of them can cause more harm than good. Anyway, I'm assuming you are all on the same page with me on this one. Do I speak up and DM her? Do I unfollow her? Do I just let this go? I'm just worried because she has such a big following that others will believe this nonsense and end up in a bad way. Thanks for discussing. I
have so many mixed thoughts on this.
I have a lot of thoughts also.
I've actually done something along these lines, so I'll go first and you guys can bat it back at me. I don't know what the full moon is doing.
Josh loved the parasite cleanse.
So I wouldn't call it a parasite. I mean, I guess cleanse in and of itself has gotten such a bad rap because of detox teas and like, let's do this cleanse, and they're all scams. Like, let's make that very clear. I actually got a gut map done, found some parasites, and was prescribed specific things for specific parasites and bacterial overgrowth. And I felt really good after doing so. This was a 2.5, 3 month kill phase. So there was a kill, rebuild. So we're trying to replenish with good bacteria, and then a maintenance phase that we go through. So if you want to call that a parasite detox, parasite cleanse, like I did it, felt really good afterwards. Like my digestive health improved significantly afterwards. I was not howling at the moon and scraping the ground while I was doing so. That wasn't necessary, wasn't part of the protocol. But I did, it wasn't just this generic, I'll make this clear too. It wasn't this generic cure-all, detox, tea, cleanse, parasite, whatever. It was specific herbs, specific compounds that were killing specific parasites. I felt the difference. I'm significantly further along in my path to healing, a la Barrett's esophagus, all the gut issues. I think my wife can reaffirm that. And I will give credit where credit is due. That helped me.
Yeah, I think she's talking about, I've seen people post about things like this, and it's literally like the supplement that anybody can buy that you...
A cure-all?
It's like a pill that you take, and it's like a parasite supplement. I'm assuming
Probably
that's
just
what...
makes you shit your brains out.
Probably.
And to be clear, a one pill cure-all, like I was taking 15-ish pills a day, multiple times per day. Like it wasn't a one pill cure-all. That's like the difference there. It's not a cure-all. It was specific.
So I won't touch on that side of things. I honestly just have not done enough. I don't have experience with it. I have not researched it. Josh can speak to his experience. Like I can speak to his experience. I noticed a difference in him and his symptoms and whatever.
I don't fart anymore either. Let's make that very clear.
You really don't. That has been a huge benefit for everybody.
Yep.
But Lindsay, you asked, like, do I DM her? Do I unfollow her? This is really hard because I understand why you want to DM her and like you want to do good here. I guarantee she will literally probably just block you or just dismiss anything you say to her because it's like you're attacking her. This is probably something that she talks about on a daily basis, whatever. Typically, that's how these things go. Like we've seen it happen time and time again where this influencer is pushing this product or pushing a narrative. People reach out who have a differing opinion and they're sort of just dismissed because they just are not open to having a conversation about it. You could try, and if she is open, great. But I doubt she's going to stop promoting it because you DM'd her and said, this is unethical. So
if your friends are at the gym though, like, and you want to have a conversation, that's different. I would say you're going to get dismissed in DMs, but like, hey, what is this? Like, what can you tell me about it? Like, what's going on with it? And then give your thoughts if you want.
Also, I don't think I'm rereading the question. I don't think she said the girl is like promoting it or selling a supplement about it. She just said that she shared she's doing one.
Well, then she also said she has a ton of followers.
Yeah, true.
So I'm assuming.
My follow-up question to that is kind of like, is she going through like a protocol with a practitioner the way that Josh did versus is this like a supplement you bought on Amazon that you're taking and linking and you're like to know it, like that if I was going to send a DM, that would probably be my approach, if anything, like to get curious instead of judgmental of like, just curious, is this something you bought on your own? Is this something you're doing with like under the guidance of a medical provider or an integrative practitioner? Like I've gone through several gut protocols years ago that weren't quite like a parasite cleanse, but like specific gut protocols based on symptoms that I was dealing with and that required a lot of supplementation and kill phases and bacteria overgrowth stuff. And like there is something to that. Like that's not entirely woo-woo, to Josh's point. The howling at the moon stuff maybe a little bit.
I was going to say, when you say syncing it with the full moon, I kind of lose some
yeah, that part's a little
we chant at midnight.
It's like one of those like ayahuasca things and we're just like throwing up and drinking frog poison and
oh yeah.
Anyway.
I think that's DMT. You're mixing up your drugs.
Whatever, just all the drug things. Yeah, I think if you wanted, like, we can't tell you whether or not you should DM this person or unfollow her or let it go. I feel two different ways about like something like an unfollow. One, not every piece of content that someone posts can resonate with someone. So, like if I see someone post about something that like I don't necessarily agree with or I think is wrong, for me, it's not an immediate unfollow. If it's consistently happening and now it becomes that they're the poster child for the
That's like their
parasite thread.
identity now.
Right. And now that content is no longer resonating with me as a whole, or just like have an ick about the person now, then I might unfollow. But like that's up to you. Honestly, it's up to you if it's like worth a conversation or worth an unfollow or letting it go. I think it's a healthy, good thing to keep in mind that not everything that someone posts will resonate, but also if you feel like it goes against your morals, ethics, whatever, the like you also don't have to like the worst thing you can do is hate follow someone. Like,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're just gonna if you're just
Waiting for their
gonna
downfall.
yeah, like don't hate follow people. Just in that case, unfollow. But I think if you were to have a conversation,
I agree though,
approach it
Joelle.
with curiosity. Like, hey, just wondering if you're doing this like with a practitioner. Is this something you do with medical guidance? Is this something you've been prescribed? I think taking a curious approach instead of like a, don't you think this is the wrong message to send to your followers? Like that will get you blocked.
Yeah.
And Lindsay's coming at it with. I know she's coming at it with a big heart. Like
Yeah,
that's who she
absolutely.
is. So
We love
Yeah.
Lindsay.
it's
We love
one
that
thing
about you, Lindsay.
One thing to keep in mind is like, unfortunately, with social media, if it's not this girl, it's 1,000 others,
Yeah.
and like it's getting out there anyway. So I know it's making a dent. This girl has a large following. It's really not going to change the end game, unfortunately.
But I agree with you, Joelle. Like, if you can have that conversation in person, it will probably hit better than if you were to try to
Yes.
DM her. So if
Yeah.
if you can do it in person.
All right. Trisha asked, owning chickens, things you love about it and things you dislike about owning them. Are they a ton of work to maintain? Do you want to answer that? Are they a ton of work to maintain?
They're great. Josh does all the
I
maintaining.
was gonna say, I'm sensing that the Josh is in charge of the chicken.
I get the eggs out of the coop, and that's
What's
fun.
it like to just wake up and have eggs? Is that cool?
It's awesome.
How often do
no.
you have to clean the chicken poop?
We haven't had, like, this is our first year with 15. Like last year we had 9 and it wasn't that significant. Like every 3 months I was going, but that's just like pulling them out with a rake and throwing in a new batch of the shavings there. Once a year, like I'm due for new wood chips, like in the run. Like they have a huge run. I put clay down so they can do their dust baths, and then I typically top it with wood chips. It was okay last year. This year they're totally gone, so I have to fill that back in. But other than that, I was feeding them once a week. Now they're going through that a little bit faster now that we have more. I've got 10 gallons of water in there for them. So like typically it's 1 or 2 times a week. I'm filling up their water. I built these little drop feeders, gravity feeders out of PVC pipe. So I just fill those up again once a week and they're good. So maintenance wise, like once you have the system up and running, like it's a bitch to build the coop if you're doing a good one and like all these self-maintaining things. But once you have those in place, it's really not hard. Like I don't mind having the chickens at all. Except for when they stop laying eggs, that pisses me off.
We didn't know they didn't lay eggs in the winter unless you provided them heat/light. So we didn't get eggs all winter, and we just checked yesterday, and we had 30 eggs in there. So that was a nice surprise. They're back in action. But I will say that it's great for the kids too. Like the kids love having them as their little pets, even though you don't want to call them pets. But Kai thinks
Well,
they're his
like
pets.
we'll let them out. Like they'll follow me around the yard. I come
They
out.
do. They
They
follow
run to the
you
front of the
everywhere.
coop. It's weird.
Yeah, they all go back in like right at sunset. They know, okay, it's time to go to bed. We'll all go back in our coop, and they all go back in, and then we just shut the door. They're pretty smart, I will say. But overall,
That's their don't die instinct. I have to go back in here or something will eat me.
yeah, 10 out of 10 recommend chickens.
Yeah, we wanted to be at, like, not that we're totally off the grid by any means, but we wanted to do the big garden last year. That didn't work. We'll try again this year.
That was a
But just to
failure.
be as self-sustained as we can, and it's fun. The kids love it, and we're less reliant on the system, man. Anywho, if we jump into
Emily?
yes, Emily has a couple questions. What are your recommendations for when to include a warm-up set for compound lifts? Do you always do warm-up sets or only when the rep range is lower? E.g. 3 to 5 versus 8 plus. Would love some guidance on where to incorporate warm-up sets in general as I start the build program next month. Welcome, Emily, to Build.
She, I believe, is finishing up Postpartum Forever. Yeah, honestly, I do warm-up sets for every compound lift that I'm doing typically. At least the big lifts like squat, bench, deadlifts, overhead presses, sometimes rows, RDLs, like all of the big hitters, I'll do warm-up sets no matter the rep range. So yeah, you definitely want to do them for the lower rep ranges because you're lifting heavier likely, but also you're probably still lifting fairly heavy on them for 8+ reps too. So you at least want to get in, I would say 1 to 3 warm-up sets before you get to your actual working sets. And it will vary depending on where that rep range is, how many sets you have, but you very rarely are you going to just hop into your set of squats and not do any warm-ups.
And I'm not sure where you guys fall on this spectrum. You guys, I said. You guys. I'm not sure where y'all gals,
You two.
or you two,
You
the two of you,
ladies.
you ladies, fall on this spectrum. But when it comes to warm-up sets, like I am very, very anti-fatigue in warm-up sets. So I'm typically doing a couple reps. If I'm doing like 135 on bench press, I might do 10 or 12 of those just to get some blood flowing. But from that point, I'm doing 1 or 2 reps as I work up for a couple more sets just to prime my nervous system for the heavier weight. So I'm not jumping from that into 200 whatever for that workout. And it's like, holy shit, this first set's nuts. So I don't know if you guys feel differently about actually getting the additional reps in. Damn it. I said you guys again. I'll never break this habit. Inside joke. For our one fella, you are on my radar, buddy. I hear you. I'm working
Shout
on
out
it.
to David for the feedback.
So I don't know if y'all
You
feel
can't
a
say
certain
y'all.
way.
I say
was
y'all
catching.
sometimes.
Yeah,
She
but
does.
it sounds right when Joelle says it. It does not sound right when you say it, Josh.
That's fair.
You're from Connecticut. You cannot say y'all.
I don't know how you feel about additional volume, really avoiding fatigue, getting the reps in, just feeling the weight.
I agree. I think the main part of the warm-up sets are to kind of prime neuromuscular patterns for what is about to ensue and kind of prepare the nervous system for increased weight. But you do want to skate that line of not overly fatiguing yourself with your warm-up sets, and now for your working sets you're too tired to hit the RPE or the RIR that you wanted to, or you're hitting the RPE way faster at a weight that you shouldn't necessarily hit that RPE at. So I would say, yes, warm-up sets, 2 to 3 warm-up sets tops, I would say. And I would even keep that rep count fairly lower.
I agree. Isn't it, Josh, I think you said this on a previous episode that, I don't know if it was Mike Isertel or someone, would actually do warm-up sets with weight heavier than their prescribed working sets as a way to prime your CNS, essentially.
Yeah, it was Mike Isertel, and he did that so that first set felt lighter.
Yeah, which makes sense. Like if you're... I think that would apply for more powerlifting type training. Like as a powerlifter, that makes sense in my head, and like because there
He's
would
not
be
doing powerlifting shit.
But from a fatigue standpoint, that makes no sense to me.
So this isn't like
Talk
a
about
1 rep
pre-fatiguing.
max. Let's say you're doing like 12 reps and you do something you could do for 8 for like 1. So that specific single rep,
oh
Okay,
he's not
that's
doing
different.
he's not doing a full set at a heavier weight. Let me feel a heavier weight and
That's
scale it back
interesting.
down.
yeah. I don't know if I would recommend that for you guys.
Yeah.
You guys listening.
We'll start there.
But yeah, I think 1 to 3 sets max, because you don't want to do more than that, because then you're making your workout so much longer too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people struggle with having enough time to get a full session in. If you're doing 3, 4, 5 warm-up sets, that's adding a lot of time to your training session. So keep it as minimal as possible and just get yourself warmed up enough to perform that set optimally. And it's going to take practice. It's a skill that honestly takes time to hone in on, and will kind of vary between what exercise you're actually doing.
So if I'm doing 250 for bench, I would probably do, say, 6 reps at 135, a single or a double at 185, a single or a double at 225, and then I'm up to 250. So very streamlined, minimal fatigue. Second part of that question, looking back 5 or 10 years ago to your younger selves, what is one lesson you have enjoyed learning that you think a younger version of yourself couldn't have learned?
Oof.
For example, did going through health issues, pregnancy, or another life event teach you a lesson that you might not have learned without that challenge? It's a good
So
question.
many.
That's a really good question.
That's
A
we
lot
did
of
whole episode on that question.
Yeah, we
So
should.
many. So many lessons that were presented to me at different times that if they were presented at other times, I wouldn't have had the capacity to learn it for what it was.
Yeah.
I've talked about this before, but my struggle with Barrett's esophagus, that was a 10 to 12 year battle. And I was a shell of myself for the vast majority of that time. I just got back to quote unquote normal maybe 2 years ago. That's like, I've been battling this whole time. I thought I was going to be dead at 25. Like, a lot of struggling, a lot of pain during that period, mentally, emotionally, physically. And I would not trade it for the world. Like, we are where we are. I am where I am because I went through that, because of how much I learned. I destroyed my body. I was not the greatest person. It's pretty selfish. A lot of drinking. Having gone through that and being able to reflect on it, I'm a better father. I'm a better person. I know what I want out of this life and my vision for everything that we're doing and my vision for myself for this life. And I'm not sure that I would be as focused on those things had I not gone through that experience. So, like, for me, that's an easy one. That's that experience time and time again.
I think for me, I mean, like Joelle said, I think there's so many different things I can think of, but the biggest one for me, thinking back to 10 years ago, I was training really hard for powerlifting. The gym was my life. And then when we decided to have a baby, it really just flipped a switch and showed me that the gym didn't have to be my life. I didn't have to hit perfect macros most of the time. Like, I could really work out and eat and do all of the things that I loved doing that made me feel good without being perfect and obsessed with it, and see progress despite not being at that optimal level. And I think it goes back around to being a competitive athlete. Like, I was competitive in powerlifting, so it makes sense that I wanted to be dialed in as much as I could, but letting go of that and letting go of, competing and being that athlete in that sense, and allowing myself to have more flexibility, and then therefore train with my kids and train imperfectly and train less in the gym and still see progress. Like, it just opened up a whole new door of what health and fitness could be. So I think it really was the whole lesson of going through pregnancy and starting our family that really just transformed that whole side of things for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think pregnancy was pivotal for a lot of different reasons and a lot of different lessons. Things related to body image, things regarding, being grateful for what my body could do and not just what it looked like. I think something that was a really significant, and again, so many different like lessons and key components from all of our journeys. But I think the one that stands out to me the most is experiencing the missing periods, the PCOS, and really, really struggling with, having been very lean in prior years, then gaining a ton of weight, not being able to get that body weight off, kind of starting this hormone and gut health journey to get to the root cause of the PCOS in the first place, and then kind of reverse those symptoms. And I think about that was about 2 years worth of working on my internal health to undo years of dieting and deficits and not fueling enough and always being super, super aesthetics driven. And that was a really pivotal time for me, because it became, hey, all you have cared about is aesthetics for the last however many years. Now you're in a position where your health has been screwed. You don't have a period. You're not ovulating. You can't get pregnant because all you cared about ever was aesthetics. And so that forced me to really make this huge shift in the way that I thought about health, fitness, macros, training, recovery, my mindset, what my body was capable of. And I had to make some really big shifts there about the way that I trained, the way I thought about exercise and performance and recovery and sleep and nutrition. And that, there was way more to nutrition than just macro tracking or, figuring out if I could make Pop-Tarts fit my diet didn't mean that it was ideal just because aesthetically I could make it work. So there were a lot of really big shifts for me there. And to Emily's, like, part of the question that Emily asked was about teaching a lesson that we might not have learned without that challenge. It also makes me think that if it didn't come at that specific time, I wouldn't have been able to learn it the way I needed to. And it was a really good, what it makes me think of is that it was a really good setup for pregnancy, because I remember during pregnancy getting a lot of questions about, like, how are you dealing with your body changing? How are you dealing with the weight gain? And I'd be like, of course I'm gaining weight. I'm pregnant with a baby. Like, it was, and I remember feeling like, wow, I'm so glad that I didn't get pregnant 5 years earlier in retrospect, even though it might have been what I wanted at the time. I'm so glad that it didn't happen then, because I may have really been struggling with body image or aesthetics or needing to make that shift if I hadn't had that lesson prior.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if that reminds me of, have you guys seen the post that's been like going viral of like, I met my younger self for coffee?
Yes.
I think it was Dr. Nicole, maybe. I want to say it was Nicole who posted, and she's like, it was something she said, like, I wouldn't change I would tell her not to change anything because I believe in the butterfly effect. And I really loved that, because it's so true. Like, if you could go back and change any part of your past, you may not be where you are right now. And what you just said, Joelle, reminded me of that. And I think that's just a great reminder to us all that those struggles and everything that we've gone through truly makes us who we are today in all aspects. So sometimes you have to go through it and you have to power through and learn the lesson, and you come out on the other side exactly where you're supposed to be.
There's a really great quote. I'm trying to Google it quick because it's such a great quote that I don't remember exactly how it goes. But I just don't want to misquote it. But I think it was from, it was one of Paulo, I'm going to butcher his name, but like Paulo Coelho's books, either The Alchemist, if you ever read that book, or, oh man, what is his other one that I'm thinking of? One of those books. I will find it for you. But he has this great quote that has just stuck with me for a really long time. And I'm probably not saying it verbatim, but something along the lines of, the universe will keep presenting you with the same lesson over and over and over again until you learn it. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about being in a position of like, why does this keep happening to me? Right? Why do I keep be like ending up in this position, or like nothing goes right? I always come back to, what is this? What is the lesson that's being presented here that I haven't learned? And that's why I'm being faced with this again. And so I think about all of the times that the universe tried to present me with like, it's not just about aesthetics. It's not just about aesthetics. And I wasn't learning. It was like, okay, cool. We're going to botch your health. And then you're going to learn. Like, then you're going to learn. So I just like that whatever the exact quote is, but it's something about just relearning, being presented with the same lesson over and over again until you actually learn it.
It's actually perfect that you say it in that exact way. Like in the early part of the journey, or that I was about to encounter with Barrett's esophagus, like I knew I needed help. I was legitimately out of control. Like every time I drank, I blacked out. Very difficult time managing emotions and like getting in fights, doing silly things. And I'm like, I know I need help. And within like 2 weeks after that light bulb moment, like my world turned upside down for the next 10, 11, 12 years. So there are certain things that the universe will put in your face until you learn it. I love that.
He also says, when you want something, the whole universe conspires to make it happen.
Manifestation.
Love it.
Every damn day. All right. Ashley asks, posted, Advice for making friends as an adult, mom, career-driven person. Moved out of Connecticut to North Carolina about 7 years ago and have made friends, but nothing really sticks, especially after becoming a mom. And there's actually a few people in the group who commented they made the same trek from Connecticut to North Carolina. My cousin actually also made that trek, which is pretty cool. But yeah,
Maybe you made friends just by posting that, Ashley.
I hope so.
Where I'm probably not the best person to ask this question because I'm
a terrible person.
I'm still trying to figure it out. I think it's really hard in general to make friends as an adult. When you're a mom, I think it also is hard. Then you mentioned you're a career-driven person. Like, there's lots of variables here that I find that I try to look for similar qualities in other people. And something that my therapist told me before, which I think I've shared on the podcast at some point, but she said, you're going to have you're going to have very few friends who are all of those things, who are everything to that you said there, like that you can relate to. Some of your friends may be just friends that you hang out with when your kids are together. Some friends may be, your business friends who maybe don't have kids. Some friends may be, if you go to an adult dance class, they're your dance friends. I feel like we think that everybody has to be everything for us when it comes to friends, and it's a very rare thing to find that person. You may have one or two if you're lucky, but
marry them.
and you married them or you started a business with them. But I think that's a good thing to kind of just keep in the back of your mind, and also just be open to making friends who maybe you don't relate with on every aspect, but I don't know. For me, a big part of it is being open. And I know it's easier said than done, is like putting yourself out there, starting the conversation, whatever it may be. I will say it's definitely been easier now that we have kids in school, because we see other parents and other people our age who have kids. And it's kind of easier in that sense to like talk to people and make small talk and make friends that way. But it's still also really hard because it feels like everyone's just like bebopping around and doing their own thing all the time. And Lord knows we're doing the same thing here. We're on a very tight schedule right now, but it's something that I definitely want to get better at and be better at, is just being more open and like trying to actually put an effort into make friends, which it's hard.
Yep. I echo all of that. It's hard. I probably feel kind of similarly to Ashley too. And you too, Alessandra, where like, yes, therapist is right about like not every friend needs to be everything to everybody. Like you might have some friends for this, some friends for that. I am also, and maybe this is not a great mindset to go about it, but I'm also of the mindset of like, if you are not what I would need you to be in a friend, like it's not worth my time. I don't have enough time to think, like, nurture unimportant friendships.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think that's the difference of like adult friendships versus making friends as like a teen or like in college. Like I feel like I was just friends with everybody in college. Like you're just more open in that sense, and like you have just more acquaintances and not really like those deep friendships. Whereas now, like I only have time for those deep friendships, or like friendships that truly mean and provide a lot of mutual benefit. I don't know. I think we're kind of talking along the same lines here, and I hope it's coming out the way that I'm trying to say it. But it's, as an adult, you're just a little bit pickier, maybe. Mm-hmm. You know what you like, you know what you don't like. Sure.
Yeah, I am definitely pickier for sure. And I feel blessed that I have a lot of really great friendships in my life, but most of them are not local to me, which poses its own challenges of, FaceTime catch-ups and text and call checkups, to catch up with friends instead of, hey, you want to just go grab a cup of coffee this morning or matcha, or meet for lunch. I have one or two friends who I could be like, hey, do you want to meet for lunch? But they have conflicting schedules with my schedule, and like, it's just hard. It's hard. But based on the fact that you got several comments of like, wait, I'm in North Carolina too, I would almost say, Ashley, like throw that in the main discussion in the Levolution, like Team Levolution Facebook, and like, hey, I'm a local North Carolina mom, moved here from Connecticut, would love to meet other like mom friends. I would like go out on a limb and say this is a fairly safe group to do that in, and see if there's some other like-minded health and fitness lovers who are also mom life and looking to make friends.
I'm not in a phase of life where I'm looking to make new friends.
Josh wants no friends.
I forced him.
Like, I have 2 and I'm about to get rid of them.
Yep.
Josh is going to be, well, you're going to be head coach to Kaya's T-ball team. And
the first thing she says, oh, you're going to make friends with all the other coaches. I'm like, you're all great. I'm glad we're all here for the kids, but like I am here for the kids. You wanted to volunteer. Like there was a fucking 2-hour meeting the other day. I'm like, I'm not staying here for 2 hours. Y'all come for the mandatory safety meeting and I'm out. I got to get back to work. Staying up until 9 o'clock on this fucking meeting? Absolutely not. So,
do y'all remember when Brant told me to join like a Saturday group?
oh my God.
So you're not a lonely old
so
lady.
Offended.
You have to tell the story for context, or at least part of it.
So I think we had a call like that night about business, and I was like, guys, let me get your take on this. And Brant was on the call and he tried to defend himself, but no, we'll get the podcast listeners say. But essentially, my sweet husband is so supportive. And he genuinely is very supportive. But one day
it was coming from a great place.
He was very much coming from a great place, but then I made the mistake of asking follow-up questions. It deteriorated from there. And so essentially one day Brant's like, hey, I've been thinking, I think like on a Saturday or something, what if you have like 2 hours to yourself on, a Saturday or Sunday, whatever day you want it to be. And you could take 2-3 hours or whatever and go do something for yourself. Like, I know you're home all the time. You're home with the girls, you're home working. It'll probably be good for you to get out and like take a little bit of a break. And like, I'd love to have that solo time with the girls too. And I'm like, wow, like, so what a like lovely idea. I could tell you're coming from such a good place. And like, so like way to just like, step up. Like as a husband and a dad, he's like, honey, like you deserve some time to yourself. You never ever get that time to yourself. Like go do something. And I was like, wow, that's really nice. Like how did that come about?
Mistake number
Don't
1.
ask that question, ladies. Don't ask that question. Just say, thank you, sir. When do we start? But I made the mistake of saying, how did that come about? And he was like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of like, I was just thinking about how lonely you must be and how you have no friends.
No, but he wanted you to go to like a class or like a group. A group is what he called it.
Then it became, well, I was thinking about how lonely you must be and how you don't really see any friends or do anything or get out of the house. So really it's coming from a place of on that Saturday when you have that time, it's going to be mandatory. Like part of the rule is that you have to go be a part of a group of people and join some sort of group or support group or something so you can consistently see the same people. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. This just went from like, oh, Joelle can leave and like go get a manicure and like have some lunch to you need to join a support group because you're
too
lonely and you need to get out of the house. So anyway, that's the gist of it. And needless to say, that was a few months ago and this has not yet been implemented. So we'll continue to explore that in another way, but it was very funny at the time.
I will say, well, there you go. I will say though, like there are other ways to get social connection that aren't with your core group. Like that was something that I did miss. Like I don't have time for new people, nor do I want to create new old friends. Like you have one group of old friends and then, the very few special people that kind of just happen to fall into your life after that period organically. You're not looking for them. So like when we go for our walks, we're talking to the neighbors, we see friends with like Kai and his friends at school. And then like down the road, the neighbors with similar age group kids, like that's our group. We don't need the person. Like I no longer need the person I can text throughout the day. Like I don't have time to text you throughout the day. If I have something to talk about, it's usually with the two of you or like my family. Like that's it. That's the end of that. So like don't confuse or don't feel restricted. I don't have any of these great deep relationships with like sense of community. There are other ways to get out there and be around people. Quiet that baby down. Yeah, so I'll leave it off with that. Paige, I know we're 45 minutes in here. Someone's going to have to take a
Little
walk.
West.
See you later. Paige says, this may have already been touched on, but what's your thought on the carnivore diet? My husband and I were having a discussion about it last week and would love a professional's input. No.
Ugh,
Just
it's
no.
a hard no for me. She's
Anytime
like,
you're
I
cutting,
would like a professional's input, and then we're like, just don't do it.
just no. That's the input. Anytime you're cutting out entire food groups for no reason, like it's just a hard pass. Here's what I will say is the biggest improvement people are going to notice in the first week, 2 weeks, month. When you're only eating meat, you're cutting out a lot of processed shit. So if you want to cut out a food group, cut out the ultra processed shit. Yep. And you are going to feel incredible this week, 2 weeks from now, and a month from now. There's no sexy name for it. It's the no shit diet. And you're going to get better results than just going carnivore. So the reason people do these sexy things, these sexy marketed diets, fads, is because you will notice rapid improvement in something, whatever it is, whatever the highly touted thing is. And it's fun because it's very challenging. So I'm going to commit to this. I'm a part of this group. At the end of the day, you will not be carnivore for life, and nor should you be.
I think that sometimes people forget that correlation does not equal causation. And so, a prime example that we hear when people go on the carnivore diet is something like, oh, I'm feeling so much better. My skin cleared up. My bloating went down. And it's like, well, you significantly increased your protein and you drastically, if not completely, eliminated ultra processed foods from your diet because you are essentially only eating meat. And they don't even want you eating vegetables. So, some vegetables, as healthy as they are, don't sit great with people digestively and could be causing bloating. And so you start to eliminate the things that were causing bloating or upset. Of course, you're going to temporarily feel better by increasing protein and limiting ultra processed foods. But we can do that. Like Josh said, we can eliminate or reduce ultra processed foods without getting rid of fruits and vegetables, without drastically increasing our saturated fat intake. So some of my biggest concerns from a carnivore standpoint would be lack of fiber, which is a big concern. Very, very important for gut health, digestion, cholesterol levels, blood pressure, like a multitude of things that we need fiber for. And it's not just pooping. And if we're not eating fruits and vegetables, I think depending on how carnivore you are, some people allow like a little bit of fruit. But big issue with lack of fiber. And we're kind of at risk for other nutrient deficiencies. We have a big absence of key vitamins and minerals, vitamin C, folate, magnesium, potassium, like those things are generally coming from plant-based foods. So when we are eliminating fiber and plant-based foods like fruits and vegetables, we are posing more risk for nutrient deficiencies. What I suspect is going to happen, do you know the Instagram name of that like carnivore page? There's like a carnivore Instagram page. I'll see if I can find the name of it, but there's a carnivore Instagram page that specifically highlights all of the negative like long-term effects that people get from carnivore. And it'll be like, oh, I went to the doctor. I now have 3 clogged arteries, need a triple bypass and blah, blah, blah. My doctor thinks it's from carnivore. And then the comments are like, no, that can't be from carnivore. Like when you have a high intake of saturated fats and cholesterol, it can negatively impact your heart health, especially if you're predisposed to cardiovascular disease. We don't want to see, highly elevated LDL cholesterol levels. And from what I understand, that is being observed now in people who are long-term carnivore goers. Yeah, so those would be some of my biggest concerns. And then there's just the sustainability, like practicality issue of I am just of the mindset of if you couldn't do something forever, then you shouldn't start it to begin with, because
100%.
short-term behaviors are going to yield short-term results. So there's obviously like social limitations or cost limitations. It can obviously be really monotonous to only eat meat for every meal as long as you live until you die. And yeah, those would be my personal main drawbacks. And I think that people need to be very, very cautious of that
I'm
because
just
I think we're
I'm
going to
just
start seeing
picturing yeah.
a
I'm just
lot
picturing
more
the Carnivore
negative.
MD
Yeah.
changes his name. He's no longer Carnivore MD. Like
Yeah,
put your shirt
because
on
he
and
had
sit the
a
fuck
ton of
down.
health issues
He
preaching
he
carnivore.
makes his living off of fear mongering. He just finds the next fear mongering platform to jump on, put on a shirt, sit the fuck down. Those people
Yeah.
who are, I'm all set with that. No to carnivore. That's the moral of the story. Sarah says, thoughts about supplementing with greens in addition to a plant-rich diet. I've been taking First Form's greens for a while now. I struggle with IBS. I try to eat a balanced diet full of variety, full of color and plant diversity, get my water in. But do you really think a supplement such as greens is helping or just another marketing tactic, another supplement that is not necessarily needed? I can't really say I feel all that much different. Still struggle with bloating, digestion related symptoms. That would be the first thing I cut out. First Form, like it is a higher quality brand. I will say in general, and shout out Athletic Greens, these proprietary blends that are like you're getting next to nothing of what they're telling you is in there. There's a million of these things in there. The amounts are so small, it's not doing a damn thing, and they're charging you a premium for it. The fact that you're already eating a balanced diet, you're doing the right thing, Sarah. Like, stop paying for that. You don't need it.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I view it kind of like a multivitamin. Like a multi could maybe fill some gaps in your diet that, you're not getting as much from your diet, but it's not going to replace what you should otherwise be getting in your diet, plant wise, fruit and vegetable intake wise. And I would argue there is even less in a greens powder than there is a multivitamin. So if I even had to pick between the two of those, I'd go for the multi, like a high quality multi. But I would say it's not a need. It's just like hey, it might fill some gaps, but I know that sometimes greens get touted as this, like, it's going to take all your bloating away. It's going to fix all your digestive issues. And as you could see, it's not doing that for you. So you could go out on a limb there and say that a lot of that part is marketing. But I don't think you're going to take it and like notice any specific difference if you already eat a nutrient dense diet. I think the person who's maybe swapping their Baja Blast for a greens powder is maybe going to notice some differences in how they feel. But for someone who's already eating well, exercising, doing all the right things, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference in your health or your anything.
And listen, if you said, hey, I do notice a difference after I drink it, because I think First Forms also has some probiotics in it. So there's a chance that it helped with your bloating a little bit. If it did, like, you'd continue. But you've already noticed it doesn't make a difference at all. So scrap it.
Keep in mind when we also have IBS or specific digestive issues or digestive discomfort, certain probiotics can make those symptoms worse. So I also don't love to see like probiotics thrown in everything because specific strains can be helpful for specific issues. But when we just throw a probiotic at something, it could possibly make matters worse digestively. So just keep that in mind as well.
Fair. Kelsey says, Joelle, I think, has touched on this, and I'm sure y'all are over the recovery scores. Late luteal phase, my Oura ring basically says I'm dying. I do struggle with some insomnia and fatigue, but it's manageable most of the time. I usually do see a decrease in strength that week, like either have to go down in weight or don't progress that week. My question is how to balance recovery during the phase while also staying in my routine. Like, I don't want to take 5 to 7 days off each month, but also trying to prioritize recovery. Any tips on pistol squats, how to progress? Thanks in advance. So
Okay,
two
so
setups there.
What's that?
I was just saying two setups there, two different things.
Yeah. So part one, same. I feel you. It is rough to have like a full week of, wow, I feel really fatigued. I'm not recovering well. I'm also curious if you feel like you're dying versus your Aura ring says you're dying, because there are times where I wake up and my Aura data looks like I have COVID or the flu, but I really feel okay. And I know I got 8 hours of sleep. And so we're going to do the thing regardless. I similarly will notice like a little bit more soreness, a little bit less strength sometimes, a little bit more fatigue, some more like nighttime wake ups, a little bit more like 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling for a half an hour before I fall back asleep. I definitely get that way as well, late luteal phase. And I think it's helpful to there's two kind of parts of this. One, adjust accordingly if needed based on how you're feeling, not just based on what's in your aura data. Another kind of prime example of the opposite of that, like I slept terribly last night. I was tossing and turning all night. And I looked up at my aura stuff this morning. I was like, 92 readiness. You had a great night. And I was like, I did not have a great night. Like I was up thinking and like stressing and tossing and turning all night. So always we are big fans of like take a wearable with a grain of salt and pay attention to how you feel, what your biofeedback is doing, your recovery. Is your soreness lingering? I love, it sounds like you're not just relying on your ring. You're like, I notice a difference with my sleep. I notice a difference with my fatigue. I notice a difference in my strength. I am never going to sit here ever and say, take those 5 to 7 days off in your luteal phase, because I don't think that is productive either. I think that there is a way to compromise. I think there's a middle ground there. How can we improve recovery during that time if we know that strength is low and fatigue is higher? So can we potentially increase calories a little bit that week? Not substantially, but maybe an extra 25, 30 grams of carbs or an extra 40, 50 grams of carbs could be the difference in having that same level of fatigue. And could we change sleep during that week in any which way? Can we get in bed 30 minutes earlier? Even get in bed 15 minutes earlier and sleep 15 minutes later. Now we just got an extra half hour of sleep. Could that be helpful for recovery in those days? Can we move the 5 a.m. workout into a late afternoon or lunchtime or later in the day workout to get the extra sleep during that phase if you know that that's when recovery is a little bit lower? So that's kind of my strategy, is when I'm noticing recovery isn't as good or strength is different, where can I support recovery and fatigue with my nutrition and with my sleep, and even sometimes training intensity and frequency. Again, I would never say, hey, take that whole luteal phase off or take that whole 7 days off, but maybe you do bring training frequency down from 5 days to 4 or from 4 days to 3, or you treat that week as like a maintenance lift week instead of I'm going to aim to hit PRs this week. So again, something always better than nothing. But this is where like the term auto regulation comes into play for me of assessing, what do I need? Do I need to do 2 sets this week instead of 3? Do I need to do 3 sets this week instead of 4? Do I need to drop a lift this week to improve my recovery? So it really just comes down to what you feel is going to give you the best bang for your buck, while also not taking off entirely for a week, because again, I don't think that that's productive towards your goals.
And then just from a general sense, try not to make it a habit of waking up and immediately checking your Oura ring and all your scores. Like wake up, take a shower, brush your teeth, do your gratitude journal, start your day, commit to what you're going to do that day, and reference your ring at some point later. Like do not let that be the driver of your decisions. That was something that I was doing consistently. It was like, all right, I woke up, how do I feel? Let me let my phone tell me how I feel. Like, how am I feeling today? No, start your day. You decide how you're feeling. You decide what that plan looks like, and then reference that data when it becomes irrelevant. The second part of that was tips on pistol squats, how to progress. So focusing on unilateral leg movements, and then like if you want to get really movement specific, single leg box squats. If you have those TRX rings, or TRX or the rings, is it called TRX?
TRX is like the yellow and black suspension system.
So that, or you can get a very cheap pair of just rings off of Amazon for like literally a tenth of the price of the specific TRX brand rings, and just support yourself. So you can do pistol squats and support yourself a little bit by holding those, leaning back. So just finding ways to decrease the resistance of your full body weight going through the full range of motion on a pistol squat is going to be the most ideal. Brittany asking for a loved one. Nutrition basics for high blood pressure. Doctors keep giving different opinions or just wanting to start meds. No other known health issues. He is moderately active, does strength training. I will say off the top that this is... What's that?
Are we doing cardio? Is one of my first questions.
She's saying nutrition.
But you did say
specific.
Nutrition, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So
I would defer to Kara. Yeah, I would defer to Kara. She is RD. Gets very specific into these, Kara being one of our Levolution health coaches. Anything that you would want to throw out there, Joelle?
Yeah, so typically when we talk about blood pressure, we want to look at sodium and potassium, increasing how much potassium he's consuming. And I don't necessarily mean like take a potassium supplement, but increasing potassium rich foods, bananas, oranges, sweet potatoes, spinach, avocados,
Avocados.
beans, tomatoes, dairy, if tolerated. I think the recommendation is like 3,500 to 4,500 milligrams ish per day from whole foods, specifically, not supplements. And sodium could be playing a role in that. I know that sodium gets often tied to blood pressure, but it's not typically sodium in and of itself. It's that sodium ends up being out of ratio with potassium. And so that's why I'm quicker to say increase potassium before I necessarily say reduce sodium.
And the correlation there being balancing intracellular and extracellular volume, correct?
Yep. 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 And a big part of, did she say, let me look back at this question. No other known health issues, moderately active, does strength training. So I'd also be curious about how much like ultra processed packaged foods we're consuming, because those like can be very high in sodium, especially if we're not having a ton of potassium. We're kind of, again, out of balance there. So like general guidelines focusing on whole unprocessed foods with an emphasis on fruits and veggies, think 3 to 5 colors per day, which is ultimately going to be like 4 to 5 servings each day. Lean protein, healthy fats, whole grains, dairy if tolerated. Another thing we could look at when it comes to blood pressure is caffeine intake. I feel like caffeine and alcohol are two kind of missed components for blood pressure. So some people are more caffeine sensitive, and that can affect blood pressure. And also, like, I think it's 1 to 2 drinks per day of alcohol can raise blood pressure. So if he's someone that potentially drinks alcohol regularly, cutting back on alcohol could be helpful. In addition to potassium, magnesium and calcium could be helpful there as well. So increasing magnesium rich foods, nuts, seeds, dark leafy greens, whole grains, dark chocolate. Yay. Calcium rich foods, again, dairy, fortified milks or like plant-based milks, sardines, really great source of calcium. Personally, can't get them down, but if he can, great. What else? Omega-3s can be really great for blood pressure. So salmon, again, sardines, but non-fish sources would be like flaxseed, chia seeds, walnuts. He could potentially benefit from like a high quality fish oil supplement with a good EPA DHA ratio. And the biggest thing here is weight management. Honestly, if he's overweight, even like a 5 to 10% reduction in body weight can significantly lower blood pressure. So you could be adding all the magnesium and calcium and potassium in the world, but at the end of the day, if the body is carrying around a lot of extra body weight, that is a main contributor. So I'm not sure what his body weight or body fat percentage or any of that is, but you said he strength trains, which is great. That is a great place to be, but potentially being in a deficit, losing some body fat, and adding in some cardio could be helpful there.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned nutrition specifically, but you did say moderately active strength trains. I'm going to go as far as to bet there's significant room for improvement across the board, like whether it's nutrition or everything else. And if you were kind of fishing for like, do we do specifically the DASH diet, the Mediterranean diet? Like at the end of the day, how badly does he want to avoid going on medication? If he does, we're not drinking alcohol anymore. We're probably going to cut out all caffeine, maybe limit it to 1 cup of coffee a day, until we get these things under control. We're cutting out all the highly processed shit. We're just like, if you want to keep it super basic as far as nutrition, whole food, nutrient dense options. That's what you're eating. That's what you're consuming. Like when I went through my struggle with Barrett's esophagus, I understood the sacrifice I had to make, and it was extreme. If he wants to avoid going on medication, you have to ask yourself, how serious are you about that? How much do you want to avoid? How much are you willing to sacrifice? And if you're only going to go halfway, you're going to end up on medication. So one thing I was just pulling up on my phone while you were going through that, Joelle, I was trying to find the episode number. Our our episode 26, TFL 26, the top predictors of health, unlocking the true power of the L5 method for life-changing results. If you want to talk about the specific, incredible statistics for the most basic of lifestyle factors, go listen to that episode. It's like the impact of walking, movement, the impact of increasing fiber, everything we've been talking about, but giving you specific statistics that will improve not only cardiovascular health, but overall health. To give you the actual numbers, like, oh, how is this little thing going to do so much? Like, it will. I can probably guarantee he's not doing as much. I don't know if she said she is not doing as much as they could in a lot of these departments. And getting those things down and being really consistent with them is going to have a huge impact.
Oh yeah, I think I was saying he that whole time, but she just said asking for a loved one, and I don't know why I just magically assumed it was a male or like assumed husband. Yeah, just to give one last example, I have a family member who was on 2 different blood pressure meds to control their blood pressure. This person then lost 50 pounds, was taken off both blood pressure meds. And honestly, when they wanted to come off the meds and ask the doctor about it, he was like, nah, like, why do you want to come off of them? Like, why? They're working. And this person was like, well, I've lost 50 pounds. I'd like to navigate and figure out if I even still need these anymore. And so they slowly weaned off, and the blood pressure was the 120/80, like without the meds. So they went back to the doctor and was like, hey, I'm off. I weaned off with medical guidance, but like weaned off. Blood pressure's normal. He's like, oh, okay, great. I guess you don't need them anymore. But he even like the doctor even was like, yeah, like why do you want to come off of them? My mom was like, because why would I want to be on them if I don't need them? But yeah, anyway, no longer need them.
Don't need them. Power lifestyle. Sue asks, what's the difference between collagen versus regular whey protein? Should I be taking collagen too?
Can't hurt, doesn't necessarily, may or may not help with anything. There's a lot of anecdotal research about collagen. If I had to choose between the two, I'm definitely pro whey. Biggest issue with collagen is from a muscle building standpoint, there is no leucine. And leucine is what is needed for muscle protein synthesis. So if you were like, I'm going to have a post-workout protein shake, collagen would not be helpful for that. Absolutely, whey would be better in that scenario. But like you could try to take collagen as well, and you could see if it impacts your, hair, skin, nails, anything like that. Some people say that they notice it helping their joints or like achiness or joint pain that they've been having, or they notice a difference in their hair growth or something like that. So, I would say you could trial and error it. I am of the notion that, like, if it's not going to harm you, you could give anything a go. There's nothing telling me that collagen is inherently harmful. So if you can afford it and you could budget for it and you want to give it a whirl for a few months and see if you notice any changes, great. But from a fitness, muscle recovery, performance, muscle fitness standpoint, 100% whey would be my choice.
For sure. And then, like, if you want to go natural food-ish route with that, like, I start every day with a cup of bone broth specifically for my gut. It helps kind of lubricate the lining, and it just prevents any issues for the rest of the day. I feel really good doing that. So rather than spending whatever it is for vital proteins or whatever the collagen supplement, throwing that in maybe with your whey protein shake, which you could, there are some pretty significant benefits with starting your day with bone broth on an empty stomach. Anonymous member 750 asks, what advice do you guys have for life when life just feels like a lot? For reference, I am a new first-time mom and 4.5 months postpartum with a full plate. I work full-time, leaving the house at 6:45 and getting home at 4:45. I can't have my phone up at work. I work out 4 days a week minimum, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. I have 2 dogs, a cat, and my husband works shift work, so most of the time I am parenting alone and can only ask for a little help with things like dishes or laundry, and I am also in college and working on weaning off breastfeeding, but intending to keep pumping for about a month. It feels like I get a good routine going. When I get a good routine going, curveballs are thrown, such as tax season, work complications, and such. I'm lucky to get 5 to 6 hours of sleep between midnight feeds and pumping sessions. I already have decided to take an 8-week break from school to get my feet under me again. Oh, there's more, but have
to keep going
to keep
after that.
after that. How do you keep your head up above water when it feels like you're stubbing your toe on every step you try to make forward?
You have a full plate, my dear.
That's a full plate.
You have a very, very full plate. I think, again, not to be repetitive, this kind of comes back to the question of, or the response really of something is always better than nothing, and kind of taking that approach. I love that you were able to say, hey, I'm going to take a quick break from school, get my feet underneath me again, and kind of go from there. I think, when it comes to even training, like when we look at this situation, we have to look at what is in our control and what is out of our control. We can't control your work hours, I don't think. We can't control, other than the fact that you're taking a school break, we can't control, what time your classes are at, or what your husband's shifts are necessarily, or the fact that you have 2 dogs and a cat to take care of. There are many things that are kind of out of your control. So we have to zoom out and look at what is in your control. The amount that you're working out is semi in your control in this scenario. The intensity and the frequency of your workouts is in control. The amount that we're sleeping is debatably in or out of control, depending on, I'm sure, the day, the work schedule, your husband's schedule, and so on. I think you have a very, very full plate, and obviously getting 5 to 6 hours max is not ideal. So partially with that, reminding you that this is a temporary season of life, and like your baby will sleep eventually, and you won't be breastfeeding eventually, you won't be pumping eventually. Like there's a light at the end of the tunnel in that sense. And so part of it is just knowing and accepting, I think, that like this is just going to be a grind of a season for you, and understanding that some of that is in your control. Most of it is not. So we have to do what we can, when we can, and where we can. So can we at least make sure that we're prioritizing, protein and color in the diet? If we need to drop workouts down from 4 days a week to 3 days a week, can we do that? Can we, strap the baby onto us and do the workout, or strap the baby onto us and take the walk? But I think this is a really good reflection point of pinpointing where and what you can control, and not stressing about the things you can't, which I know is way easier said than done.
For sure. Agree with all that. Just stack the biggest rocks, the things that are going to have the biggest impact, and stick with those. Be consistent with those. Basics on protein, basics on movement, basics on training, basics on mental health. Like pick one little thing for each pillar: training, nutrition, mindset, movement, habits. Do it every day, and just don't stress about the other things that you can't do right now. Anonymous member 254 asks, have you answered perimenopause, menopause questions before? Are there certain exercises that are better when in this phase of life? Finding it harder to build muscle and not gain weight, even though I'm consistently getting 8 to 10,000 steps. I'm strength trained, yogaed once a week, and eaten high protein, tracked macros since with level 10 in 2021. I regularly do PT. Are there better types of NEAT for managing symptoms, or something else I can do? I also play a sport, and when I try to do a calorie deficit, I'm too tired to have any fun at it. I feel like my body hates me no matter what I do. Why does this happen to women? It sucks.
So a few things. One, we have chatted about this a little. Menopause can be really challenging. Perimenopause, menopause can be really challenging for women. A lot of times it's when women notice a difference in the distribution of their body fat. There is, something to that. Women start to store more visceral fat during menopause. That's mostly because of the shifts in estrogen. You're in an interesting spot too, where you're saying like, it's harder to gain muscle, but I'm wanting to gain muscle, but I know I need to eat to gain muscle, but I know that I don't want to gain weight, and I want to be in a deficit so that I look the way that I want. But then when I'm in a deficit, I don't feel good because I feel too fatigued to do my sport. So you're definitely in a really unique position. That's unique in the sense that this is a very kind of specialized situation, but is also, I think, so common in the same way. Like it's unique, but it's not unique to the menopause experience. Like I feel like it's more common for the menopause experience. So I don't necessarily think that there is a better type of NEAT for managing symptoms. I also think that depends on what symptoms you're specifically talking about. Are we talking about hot flashes? Are we talking about insomnia? Some things that can help during menopause. We do want to keep protein high. We do want to be strength training. We do want to be doing cardio. It really does sound like you are doing all the right things. I would say that part of menopause, and this might not be the answer that the people want to hear, but part of the response here is a mindset shift around why you're training. I think for a lot of people, they are in this kind of menopause shift. They're not necessarily liking how they're looking. And it is temporary in a sense. But B, things that we have to keep in mind when it comes to menopause with a much lower estrogen production is bone health. So strength training, not just because like we like how muscle looks or for the look, but outside of aesthetics, bone health, strength training, resistance training for bone health is going to be crucial because as we age, we are at more risk for falling, for illnesses, surgeries, all of that. And if we don't have the musculature to support recovery or the bone density to support recovery or support walking up the stairs or so on, activities of daily living begin to get much, much harder. And so it is no surprise that you're feeling some more of that fatigue as well with lower estrogen levels. That's very, very common. So resistance training is one of the best things we can continue to do for our muscular health and our bone health. Same with keeping protein intake high. We want to limit fall risk. We want to limit risk of osteoporosis or osteopenia. And I think that there's also a piece of menopause, like in training, that gets confusing because you have some people being like, yes, do cardio. And then you have other people being like, no, cardio is bad for your hormones. But cardiovascular training is really, really important for hormonal health and menopause and cardiovascular health. So I would continue to do cardio. I don't think she put in here, any specific intense cardio outside of step count. So that would be something that I would want to see added. I know you mentioned 8,000 to 10,000 steps, strength training, yoga, protein, but can we inject in there some intentional intense cardio? You have the steady state, thing down with a low intensity, walking, taking walks, getting steps in. But can we add in some even short, 15-minute intense sessions of cardio? Because you might see some improvements there in body composition, but also some improvements in fatigue, and being able to better manage some of those symptoms.
Do you have thoughts on hormone optimization therapy?
Yeah, I mean, you could consult with a doctor about HRT. There's a lot of new information coming out about HRT, and a lot of women, now that life expectancy is longer, much longer than it used to be, we have women going into menopause and then living another 50 years with no estrogen in their body. So they're absolutely, I think it's worth having a conversation about HRT. It used to be a very big no because it was believed that like if you took, HRT post menopause, you were going to get cancer, and there was some not great research in that sense. But there's a lot more coming out now about hormone replacement therapy, and not just like estrogen, but testosterone replacement in women in menopause and how that could be really helpful. So I would say consult with your doctor. It's worth having a conversation about for sure.
All right. Michaela asks, how important is it to get 7,500 steps each day versus an average of 7,500 steps per day over the week? So on run days, I'm well over 13,000 steps, but on some other days, I struggle to get between 7,500 between work, baby schedule, etc. So it really depends on how short you're falling, Michaela. I would say like if you're averaging that, you're in a good spot. But as far as like just day-to-day mood, energy levels, general productivity, and just getting up and moving, it's still important. So if you're going from like 13,000 to 3,000 or 4,000 because you're so stuck between those other obligations, I would make it a priority to, walk the baby in circles around the house or get outside, take the walks. If you're at like 6,000 and change, 7,000, you're still in a good place. And over the course of the week, you're still getting a ton of movement in. So I wouldn't stress too much in that situation. But if your sedentary days are super sedentary, I would figure out a way to bump those up a bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Rebecca says, when programming, I realized that new phases are posted each month. However, curious if there were any added benefits between following a program 4, 6, 8 weeks, etc. If I wanted to follow build for 8 weeks versus 4, what are your thoughts on this? Pros, cons. To start that off, I will say we update monthly because it's more fun, like for our app users. 4 weeks is the absolute minimum amount of time needed for a stimulus to be applied to see progress, like the minimum. If you want to follow it for 4 weeks, for 6 weeks, for 8 weeks, you can do so. Like the app is set up to log for as long as you want to, for as long as that program is available. I mean, you could go 4 to 12 weeks on a block, but if we left certain programs for 12 weeks, people wouldn't be thrilled about paying every single month. They'd get bored. Like just for our general user, there's so much turnover because they're going from the Instagram swipe throughs into this. So even waiting 4 weeks for some people feels like an eternity. So we like to keep it fun. We'll keep it really efficient. I will say, like for the programs I program, Physique Plus, Evolve Hybrid, I don't shake things up dramatically. Like it's not an entirely new thing every 4 weeks. We're building on what we just did. So a lot of times I'll keep similar movements, if not the same movement, and I'll stick with changing rep ranges slightly. We'll work with different intensities. So that is like we try to give you the best of both worlds. We keep it shorter to make sure it is something exciting to look forward to. There is some intrinsic motivation that happens in that regard. Like, oh, I can't wait to do this new thing. You look forward to it. You stick with it longer. But if you wanted to double up on it, like you absolutely could.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's really not much downside to making your block into a 6-week block or an 8-week block. The biggest con you're going to run into is just starting to get bored. But we like with our coaching clients, we sometimes have coaching clients on a 6 or 8 week block because you have obviously it's a little bit different because you have a coach like reviewing their programming and how they're progressing through those 6 to 8 weeks and so on. But I'm a big fan actually of longer blocks. So you're not really going to run into any downsides there again, besides just getting like sick of the same movements or boredom. So if you're not bored and you like the program and you want to make it longer, as long as it's still in the app and you're not losing it because a new month is coming in, you could definitely keep it longer.
For sure. Savannah says she needs the 411 on peptides. They're all the rage right now in the wellness industry, and I just need to know if it's BS like every other thing. That's all the rage. EX make. I don't know if make is a thing or if her thing got cut off.
Yeah, I don't know if that got cut off or if is she saying like example MAKE? Is that a peptide?
Sounds like could be a peptide. So I will say there's a lot of promising research on peptides, and outside of the US, it's been used a bit longer. We have some people that are in our circle who are very big advocates of peptides. They tend to be, I don't want to say a bridge as though you always end up on HRT or always end up on testosterone replacement, but it is kind of like this bridge therapy or supplementation to your lifestyle where you can come off it. You don't actually have to stay on peptides forever, where, if you're on testosterone, you typically stay on testosterone. Some are more researched than others. Some are certainly safer than others. Obviously, the lab, the pharmacy, the place that they're coming from has a big impact. You're not just going and buying these off of black market Amazon. Like you need to go through a reputable company who has a reputable pharmacy. I have tried them for a very, very short period. I coupled this with testosterone. I lasted about a week and a half because I'm the guy who has the adverse reactions to everything. I'm not against them in the future. And I do have a few people in mind for actually doing a full peptide episode. So I can't give a ton of in-depth outside of my experience, outside of the stack that I was on, which were very safe and like I had like the most abstract side effects that you could have. And like, it's its own story. But I can't go too deep on it. I will say that there is promise to it. They're not another fad. Like there is research behind a lot of these, but there is a lot behind some and some behind a lot. We'll say it like that. But I would
Yeah.
like to have someone else on that would be able to give us a more in-depth breakdown.
Yeah, I can't. I can't speak. Certainly, I can't speak from experience. I could tell you what I do know. I agree. They're like kind of a trendy topic right now. There are also like saying peptides is a very broad term. Like we have all heard about weight loss medication like GLP-1 agonists, right? Ozempic, tirzepatide, semaglutide, those are peptides. Like that is a peptide technically. So I think it also matters what we're talking about when it comes to peptides. Usually, I think we're hearing about peptides a lot right now for like hormone regulation, muscle growth, fat loss.
Healing.
And I feel like anti-aging is like a big
Yeah.
peptide thing right now.
And the newest is the uptick is in like brain health and
Yeah.
cardiovascular health. So those are probably falling into the line of longevity, but there are ones taking center stage in those specific departments.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, for me, this is like my own personal slash professional opinion is when there is not a ton of human research and it is very limited, like when human research is limited and something is new and flashy, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to wait a few years on that. I'm going to wait. Not that peptides haven't been around for much longer. I'm sure they have been. Now it's starting to gain a lot more popularity. And so I think it depends on which peptide someone is looking into. Ultimately, for a lot of them, human research is pretty limited. A lot of them are not like FDA approved for human use. A lot of them are like, hey, could possibly be useful for this, could possibly be useful for recovery, but also don't expect superhuman healing. So I think the jury's still out on how much and which ones are evidence-based, so to speak. And I am definitely not the expert on them, so I don't feel like I could promote or deny them. I don't know enough. I know the basics of probably need more evidence. Many of them have pretty weak evidence aside from GLP-1 agonists. And I think it's for me, it's like a wait and see what else comes about before I would personally use it. I would need to know way more about it before using something.
One of the most popular ones out there right now is it's testosterone and ipamorelin. It was actually developed as an AIDS therapy, so it reduces visceral fat in, at the time, AIDS patients. That was a big risk factor. They continued to expand on it. They said you can actually use this for the general population. It also happens to promote really deep sleep, recovery, just general leanness, especially like so people will use this if they're going through a cut. Like now, this isn't a well promoted one because they can retain muscle mass. It helps reduce body fat, and especially around the visceral. So there are some, that one is FDA approved. There are some that have been researched that have been deemed fairly safe. Take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, I have a few people in mind who maybe reach out and we do a full episode on peptides, what are deemed the safest, some that are borderline, some that are no-nos, long-term risks, short-term implications. We'll get that ball rolling for you.
Well.
Jennifer asks, this has definitely been talked about before, but currently wearing an Apple Watch, not too attached to the data, but want to get some more data in terms of sleep. Not really big on wearing a watch to bed. Is getting an Oura Ring worth it? That is why Alessandra and I are in the Oura Ring camp. I hate wearing a watch to bed. Didn't do it.
Yep.
This thing has been awesome. This thing.
Yep. Oura Ring all the way. Is it worth it is always a tough question because it's worth it to me. I don't know if it's worth it to you, but I think if you don't want to wear a watch, but you still want all the data, then Oura Ring is a really great option.
Agreed. Blake.
Last one.
Last one. That was a long episode.
Yeah.
Blake says, I love the mantra, don't bar worry, but I feel like that's easier said than done. What are some tips to not worry so much? It is 1,000% easier said than done. I think if you can get into the practice of mindfulness, if you're not already, like whether it's meditation, just some rounds of breathing, like the first step is literally just being more present, being more mindful, becoming more aware. When that happens, you can catch yourself borrowing worry, quote unquote. So, I'm worrying about this thing. As far as how to not worry so much, all you can do is prepare and let the cards fall where they may. So if something is a real possibility, what can you do to reduce that outcome, the possibility of that outcome to the greatest extent. Do that thing and just keep moving forward. Now, like, I won't even throw out examples, but as far as staying away from that bucket of borrowing, just staying present. Like, what's happening right now in front of you? Is this actually starting to occur? Are you already affected by this? Or are you worrying that you're going to be affected by this? Again, control the controllables, stay in the present moment. That's the best, most efficient advice. I could talk about this for an hour, but that's the most efficient way I could give it to you.
Yeah, I'm not a great person to answer that question about tips
Do you
to
borrow
not
some
worry
worry?
so much. I borrow worry all the time. Josh has to tell me to not borrow worry, which I don't really even understand. So I'm glad that resonates with you, because to me, I'm like, what does that mean?
For
Don't
those who
borrow
are
worry.
still a little confused, when we're borrowing worry, we're basically exponentially increasing the amount of stress on us. Like, if that
Who are
thing
we
were to
borrowing
happen,
it from?
the future.
It's
You're thinking
my
about it.
own.
It's living in
It's
your
my own.
mind.
I'm
It's
not borrowing
rent
it
free.
from anyone.
You're borrowing it from your future self, who may not even have that worry. So we're
Interesting.
like, you might spend more time worrying about that thing happening, or more pain occurring, worrying about that thing happening than if that thing just happened. If that makes sense, if that resonates. A lot of times,
That's
it
fair.
actually happening is not as bad as the amount of worrying we put into the
The
possibility of that thing
anticipation.
happening. Exactly.
Yeah, the anticipation is usually worse than the actual thing.
Yep. So prevent it,
true.
work what you can to prevent that thing. And if that thing does happen, okay, what's the plan? How do we get through that thing and come over that thing? And if you can put those two pieces in place and then get back to the present, like we're living here and what's happening right now, you're going to be as good as you're going to be. You know, cards are going to fall where they're going to fall. So I hope that was
Preach.
somewhat reassuring. I'm not sure that it was, but
Y'all, if we
best
made
I
it
can-
through this whole episode,
we
congrats.
appreciate you.
This was long.
We're going to leave you a review if you made it through this hour and a half. You're a 5-star
Let us know
listener.
if you listen to it, and we'll leave you a review.
We'll leave you a review. Well, we appreciate you guys. For those who stuck around for the full 90 minutes, maybe this was a few car rides. Like, we appreciate the heck out of you. Alessandra had to bounce with Wes. He was being a little bit fussy, and that would not have been fun to listen to. So, again, thank you guys for being here. Where can they find you?
At Joelle Samantha.
I'm at Josh Scutnick, and everything else is linked in the show notes.